Welcome to this week's Field Trip Friday, and this week is very special because we're in the process of a month-long special program specifically for career development. And this field trip that we're going on today is going to talk about a life of a park ranger, and specifically the park that we're going to visit is a very famous park, Central Park in downtown New York City. And so this is a very special type of park ranger. The park ranger we're going to meet is her name is Sunny, and Sunny is an urban park ranger. So it's a little bit different than maybe a park ranger that would be in, let's say, the Grand Canyon, something like that. A little bit different. Her job is a little bit different, but we'll talk a little bit about park rangers in general. And the park ranger will go into pretty good detail about what Sunny does as a park ranger for the Central Park. My name is Elliot Lawrence, and I am a 4-H educator in Lucas County, Ohio, which is the very top corner of, we're not really in the corner, actually. It's very top edge of Ohio. And I have been doing these virtual field trips since I believe March 27th was the first one that we ever did. So I've done about I think this might be the 13th one, 14th one, somewhere around there. So we're going to keep doing them. This week, as I said, is part of our Future You career development program. And I do have a link in the chat box. I'll post it again when we get done to find out information about the Future You program. And so we've got a couple. We got about another week left before that month-long program ends. So we have one more career development, career-based field trip after this field trip. We're going to have one next week, and then we'll go back to just exploring places around the world that maybe we've never been to. So this week, we're of course at Central Park. Central Park is behind me there. And this is the giant pond that's in the center of Central Park is directly behind me. And it's kind of iconic. It's been used in a lot of different movies. Many of us have probably been to Central Park before. I have been to Central Park before. It's a beautiful park. You get in the middle of it and you realize that you're not even in New York City anymore. It's pretty amazing what they've done, and it's an incredibly old park, and it's that wildlife oasis in the middle of a large sprawling metropolis that is New York. So the park, we're actually for the field trip right now. We're actually in the park office. The park ranger's office, and the park ranger's office, and we'll give you a little tour. It's kind of got some neat ceilings. It has a curved arch ceilings, which are kind of neat. The reason they do have that is because the park ranger station is actually in the basement of the Belvedere Castle. And so the very famous Belvedere Castle that's in Central Park, their office is in the basement of that. So that's actually where we're at. That's where we're going to start today. And you'll see Sunny right there on the right. We'll get to know her a little bit later. This is Sunny's desk area. It looks like a pretty common office. It's a little messy by my standards, but other people have different standards of messiness. But and that's okay. That means that she's doing a lot of good stuff, probably. Sunny has a desk that she uses when she's working at Central Park, of course, and this is her office. This is where she communicates with teachers. A lot of teachers in the New York area book visits. They can get a hold of the park rangers, and they can book visits to Central Park. And they have environmental science outreach program. They have small animal outreach programs, and they do a lot of different programs for school-age kids in Central Park. And that's one of the key parts of Sunny's job, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. So they She helps plan field trips from here. She helps work with other park employees. She helps the park goers that are in the park seeking help and calls about sick animals. If you can imagine, there's a lot of animals inside Central Park. And she usually works, it's generally, there's a lot of night and weekend jobs with the park ranger job, because nights and weekends are some of the busiest times for most parks, not just Central Park, but most national parks. The busiest time is our nights and weekends, of course. And so her schedule is pretty flexible at Central Park here, and she generally works about 8:30 to 5. We'll find out later that Sunny is actually a sergeant in the park ranger system, and so she's got some seniority. She's in charge of some people, so she's usually there about 8:30 to 5. So now we'll actually meet Sunny right here, as I pointed her out before. There's Sunny, and there's one of the assistant park rangers with that is not a real raccoon. That is a stuffed raccoon. Sunny has been a park ranger with the New York City Park System since 2006. And she works in the borough of Manhattan. So if you know about the boroughs of New York, she works in Manhattan. And she's not only in Central Park, her main office is in Central Park, but she's also in Inwood Hill Park, Riverside Park. And then, of course, Central Park is the largest park that she's over. She actually has Native American roots, and that's why she became a park ranger, because she has this love of protecting the natural world and protecting animals and making sure that everyone is having a good time to visit the park, make sure that nobody's destroying things in the park and hurting animals or anything like that. She actually came from a tribe called the Lenape tribe, and the Lenape tribe actually has no word for waste. An interesting fun fact. There's no word for waste. So she's very, Sunny comes from a background of very environmental friendly people. And so that's a lot of park rangers you meet. That's kind of the background that they have. So if that's something that you're interested in, that's definitely something that the park ranger is something that you might want to look into. She has a Bachelor of Science in Environmental Science, and she also minored in chemistry. And interesting enough, she also minored in theater. So you think to yourself, well, park ranger and theater, that's kind of, that doesn't go together, right? No, it does actually. So Sunny does a lot of teaching, and you kind of have to have a bit of theater in you to stand in front of a crowd of people, or stand in front of a crowd of young people, and when classes come out. Because if you don't have that theater aspect, you kind of become boring. People might doze off. So you don't want that to happen. So the theater background is actually something really handy to have in a lot of different jobs, especially if you're out in front of the public teaching people. That minor in theater is good, or a minor in communications is another good one. It teaches you think of theater and you just think of acting on the stage, but really theater is it teaches you to really to project, to communicate well, to give good presentations, and that kind of stuff. So it's not a bad background to have if you're interested in being a teacher, or somebody that teaches in front of people. So she's originally from Nevada, and so she actually had a seasonal job with the New York City Parks Department, and then she became the urban park ranger that she is today. So she tried out this, she really didn't think about having an urban park ranger job, but she kind of tried out that summer with the internship, and she fell in love with it, and that's how she became the park ranger that she is today. And she went on to get her Master's of Arts in Environmental Outdoor Education at New York University in New York, of course. And that's another great, obviously, that degree is very specialized in being a park ranger, being environmental science or something like that. So over on the desk, this is kind of funny. Over here on the desk, you see over in the corner, right, laying on the corner, there's a rubber chicken. And so this rubber chicken in particular, it's a prop used for a summer program called Custom Adventures, an educational, fun summer camp where kids spend a day with park rangers. And she developed a love of the planet as a kid, and she knows why it's important. She loved Captain Planet and was fascinated by Ninja Turtles because they come from toxic waste. So that rubber chicken is you also, once again, you think of a park ranger job and you think it's all serious and you have to deal with crazy people inside the park and you have to deal with people getting in fights or people getting lost. There's a lot of fun involved too. You know, there's a summer camp that they do, actually the multiple summer camps they do, and that's always kind of fun. And back here, as I said before, the other assistant park ranger there, and he's got a raccoon, and this is Edward, aka Teddy, is who she's talking to right there. Is one of Sunny's supervisorial employees. She supervises him, and Teddy's holding a raccoon pelt, and he leads programs every day during the week while Sunny is in the office. So if Sunny's in the office not being able to do programs and catching up on work, office work, then Teddy does the programs. Over here on the desk, you'll see a good example of some of the live animals that they keep in the office too. They keep some live animals for the park's educational programs, and that includes turtles and fish, and probably some other insects and that kind of stuff as well. Next, we're going to go outside the park, and this is actually on top of Belvedere Castle, and this is a pretty good view, great view of the city over there above the trees, and it's New York, so it goes on forever, but pretty neat castle. As I said, this is the top of it. And so when Sunny was promoted to sergeant, that happened after she obtained her master's degree, and that's something you want to think about, even in jobs like a park ranger. The more education you get, the more training you get, the higher job you're going to get, or the higher rank you're going to get. And of course, there's also a pay increase with that higher rank as you go up too. And Sunny's quoted and said, I work with my team of rangers to create fun and educational programming for the public, as well as lead educational field trips for schools in the NYC parks. So in front there, we see the turtle pond that's right in front of Belvedere Castle. And there's actually 3 different types of aquatic turtles inside that turtle pond. And then up here at the top, we see some more of the castle, and that is the main tower of the castle. The tower is mostly used for bird watching. You can actually go up in that main tower, and it's a great place for bird watching. And sometimes a park patron has noticed something, and she will go up and take a look. So if a park patron notices something that's going on somewhere in the park, that obviously that you can see a large majority of the park from that tower. But if you see something going on, then Sunny might go up in the top with some binoculars and try to figure out what's going on. It's a good bird's eye view of the park. So speaking of binoculars are an important tool that Sunny has. Sunny can see clear across the turtle pond by using her binoculars. And she was also quoted again by saying that as she gets older, her love of Mother Nature has just increased and grown and deepened. And you're in such a beautiful environment, such a central park. It's kind of hard not to have that feeling of love of Mother Nature. You're immersed in it all the time. So once again, if you really like nature and you really like conservation and environmental science and being outside all the time, it's a great job to get. You really have a good time We're in a bunch of trees now. So now we're actually down on the ground inside Central Park, one of the one of the more wooded parts of Central Park. This is called the Ramble. So the Ramble is one of Sunny's favorite parts of the park, and it's called the Ramble because it's easily for people. It's easy for people to get confused and lost in. Because there's no straight paths in the Ramble portion. All the paths are curved, and some intersect each other, and it's this huge mess. And so there's actually inside Central Park, just the wooded acres alone is over 35 acres of wooded area alone. And I can guarantee Sunny knows probably all 35 of those acres. So right now we're seeing a really good place for bird watching again. This is kind of down on the ground. You get the smaller birds that are down on the ground and closer to the ground. 230 species of birds live and visit the park over a course of a year, making it a great spot for bird watching. One of the best spots in the city, most likely, is Central Park for bird watching. So there you can see Teddy's holding the map. He's holding one of many maps that he keeps in his pocket for visitors. The Ramble, once again, has no straight paths, so maps are very handy to have. And that's another job that the park rangers do. They walk through this area and all the areas, and if they see somebody that looks really confused, then they obviously go up and help them and guide them through at least through the Ramble part where they can get out to some main area where they can see. And over here you kind of see a really good example of kind of how some of the paths kind of they actually put a barricade across there. So that as the two park rangers walk through this part, the rangers are available for questions, not only like questions on, hey, how do I get out of here? Where am I? But also questions about the environment, questions about Mother Nature, questions about natural resources. What kind of animals are in here? What plant is this? Can I eat this berry? All of these types of questions are all questions that they have questions about a lot. And so when asked what kind of questions they get, that kind of stuff, and why do they do it? Sunny says, my goal is for everyone to appreciate it, and just even a little bit. And the best part of the day is when a patron has that aha moment of like, I've had that before. I've been talking to people. I'm not the best with plants. Anybody that knows me, I'm not the best with plants. And so when I have that aha moment of something like, yeah, this plant can be used for this, or this plant can be eaten if you're in an emergency search situation, that's when that aha moment happens. So next up, we're going to go down to over where the lake is. And this is Sunny standing here at the bridge while she looks over the lake to make sure that everybody's having a good time and nobody's doing anything dangerous. And I don't believe you can swim in that lake. I think you have to stay in your boat. This patch has a picture of and so the interesting thing too is some of the patches where we kind of talk about some of Sunny's patches in her background. This patch has a picture of the park's logo, and it's worn by all employees. That's so if you run into somebody, it's a park employee. It's not just somebody wearing a funny looking hat with a white button down shirt. It's actually a park employee, and that they're there to help if you need to. Sunny says, I want New Yorkers to feel connected to the natural world and realize that they're part of it along with their actions. And that's one of the biggest things that she promotes is, once again, that sense of being kind to the environment, being kind to the animals, being kind to the park, and in the fact that all of this heavy nature area is all within city, all within New York City. So there's some rowboats. Patrons can rent rowboats, and they can ride them around the pond, and so you can rent them for, I think, for an hour or so. or I think you can maybe rent them all day. I believe you can fish in this pond too. I'm not sure. I think you might have to put it back. I don't think you can keep the fish, but so back to on Sunny here, this chevron patch, and as I said before, she's Sunny is a sergeant, and some often her coworkers call her Sarge. She says she has to be very organized in her with her administrative tasks because she can be interrupted at any moment to assist a ranger in the field with a program or a problem with an animal. She's kind of like Sunny's kind of like the boss of the Rangers. And so over in the distance there, you can see some of the buildings. Sorry, get back to that. Some of the buildings in New York City, and that's actually how the park rangers, especially if you're new, you can get lost in the park too. And if you're the person that's trying to help people find their way through the park, you kind of have to know the park. And so one way that they do that is they orient themselves with the skyline, because a lot of places in the park, unless you're in really thick areas of trees, a lot of the places in the park you can actually see the skyline, and so you kind of just orient yourself with that, and oh, this is the way I need to go, and that kind of stuff. So here's kind of Sunny in action over here. Some visitors have got kind of turned around a little bit, and they're on the Ramble path. As you can see, once again, that shot that we had before was not straight. This one's not straight. It's a very winding path, and a lot of it is in thick trees. It has that stone along the side, so it's easy to get used. It's easy to really lose your way. And so interesting enough, Sunny has some skills, and this is something that as a park ranger, that you would have to know. And with phones and kind of cell phones and smartphones now, it's a little bit easier. But Sunny has a watch on her wrist there. You can see right on her wrist, and she can actually tell what direction she's facing by using that watch as a compass. And so if a lot of the old veteran, well, I don't want to say old because Sunny doesn't look like she's that old, but some of the veteran park rangers really, they've got these really cool skills that a lot of people might not have. As I said, I kind of mentioned this before, they know what kind of foods that you can eat, like the natural foods that you can pick right off the branch and eat. They know what stuff to stay away from. You know, they know what poison oak and poison sumac and poison ivy all look like, and stay away from that kind of stuff. They know how to tell direction, even orienting yourself with the buildings in the background. That's something that most people that walk through Central Park wouldn't think about. If they got lost, you just kind of start to get panicky when you get lost. So Sunny's giving directions to a visitor looking for another part of the park. And that's the other problem too, is these visitors come in from one side. It's a huge park. So one side, and all of a sudden they want to get to the pond where you can rent the rowboats. Well, that could be a few miles away. And so it's in the paths to get there is all winding. So that's kind of what they really, I think a majority, unless they're teaching programs, a majority of the time it is helping patrons in the park. So Sunny really enjoys working with the people in the park, and especially with kids. She has a great love of teaching environmental science and environmental stewardship to children, and that definitely shows. She likes to point out the different insects and what kind of different insects and what those insects do. And then she also really likes one of the fun facts that she said there was the aquatic turtles. So we mentioned the turtles in the pond. There are 3 species of aquatic turtles. Those aquatic turtles actually hibernate during the winter, and so they'll crawl down in an area, and they'll just hibernate during the winter. And a lot of people don't know that about those turtles. So we're going to talk about the educational programs. Here's Teddy has looks like maybe a crawdad or something, maybe. Not sure what that is. One of the park rangers' key responsibilities is of course educating the public. They have these programs all the time, and sometimes they'll just wander around and have stuff with them. And if they see a group of people or a group of kids around, especially, they'll just walk up and introduce themselves and say that they're park ranger and not just some random stranger talking to your children. But and then they'll ask if you want to learn about uh, a crawfish, let's say. I'm not sure. Like I said, I don't know if that's actually, it looks like a little bit bigger than a crawfish. Maybe it might be a crawfish. So this is excellent. This one of the items that they had with them, of course, was a turtle shell, and kind of show the outside and the inside of a turtle shell. And the little girl there has the turtle shell on her head, using it as a hat. That's something that it's goofy, it's fun, but she's probably going to remember that turtle shell, and she's probably going to remember what that how cool it was that day to learn about turtles and different marine life. So Sunny has said leading programs is the aspect of her job most similar to her previous work in theater. Rangers must interpret and perform a story about the park to tour groups in order to make it interesting. Like I said before, it's not something you think about as a park ranger or even as an educator like I am, but a theater background, making that exciting, making that the kids want to learn more about it. That is a crayfish. So Teddy's holding a crayfish, and it's the animal, an animal commonly found in the park. Is a crayfish. Obviously, normally it's by wet areas, and Teddy teaches the kids about animals and about the conservation of the park. And actually, if you look down here in the water, you'll see there's quite a few turtles down there. So here are some of the painted and red-eared slider turtles swimming around the turtle pond. Pretty cool. So one of the areas that unfortunately does happen from time to time, but it's probably definitely not the park ranger's favorite job, but it is one aspect of their job that they need to do, that is important, and that's emergency response or public safety. And really, as a park ranger, you are a first responder. A lot of park rangers require EMT training, and or at very least they're CPR certified. And so on this day, a visitor had a bike that was stolen, and they're kind of asking for assistance to try to find the bike. So Sunny's going to radio to the other park rangers to see if to give a description of what that bike is. And once again, Sunny says that her background in theater has really has really played an important part in this, even this part, because she knows how to communicate really well, and she knows how to lead really well. So both of those skills she contributes to her time in theater, that made her do really well in that aspect. So also, Sunny has to pass along any criminal complaints to the police department, and so that after if they unsuccessfully cannot find the bike, if they cannot find the bike, then she has to pass around pass on that complaint to the police department. I believe park rangers. I'm not sure if park rangers. I think they can detain. I do not think they can arrest. So even if they were to find the person that stole the bike, they would not most likely be able to. They might be able to, like I said, they might be able to detain, and that kind of that just means that they're keeping them there. But they couldn't arrest them. I don't know if they could put them in handcuffs. The park rangers I don't think they carry guns. I don't think they carry handcuffs or anything like that, because that's not their primary job. Their primary job is to educate, and so that's not. They don't. I don't think they really want the responsibility of being able to have arrests and that kind of stuff. So the radio that she has not only can communicate with other rangers, but it's directly connected to the police department too. So then, of course, you get to drive a cool park ranger vehicle, right? Yeah. And this is her park ranger vehicle. I think this field trip was made a few years ago because it's a kind of an older park ranger vehicle. They probably got some newer ones by now, but that's how they get from large place to large place. So it's as I said, it's a large amount of land, and so in order to get from one area to the other, you have to have some sort of vehicle to get you there. Because if there was something that they needed emergency response quickly, then most likely you wouldn't be able to get there on foot very fast. So lastly, we are in Sunny's favorite area, and I have to say it is one of the coolest areas of Central Park. So this is the water reservoir. The water reservoir was built in the 1860s to provide temporary water supply to New York City. With the new water infrastructure, its role as a water supply is now obsolete, and they don't use it anymore as a water supply. It is, however, 40 feet deep, and so 40 feet deep is even a lot of lakes, a lot of obviously ponds are definitely not 40 feet deep. A lot of lakes are not even 40 feet deep. So it's a very deep body of water, and it's just really neat. My favorite part is right there is the skyline. The whole skyline, it just kind of envelopes that entire lake, and such a neat look. So you can see the skyline at the south end, and then the north end is all wooded. That's the actual park, and so it's really neat. But and of course, if you get from the other side, it's just it's all wooded area. And as the seasons change, it's sometimes hard to get oriented without big landmarks, as I said before, like this one and surrounding buildings. It took Sunny a year or two before she felt confident she could find her way out of most any section in Central Park. It's pretty impressive for just a couple years to be able to really know Central Park well. That's pretty good. So the reservoir wall over here, I don't know if you could see it very well. I can't see it very well on my screen. But it's actually split in half, and birds frequently sit on the wall that separates the two sides. So it's kind of like you can kind of see a break in the water. And actually, if you look really close, you can kind of see. I think there might be a few birds sitting on it right now. But that's that. I'm not sure why it's split in half, but I would imagine it's probably because of the way that they build it. That they probably had to build one section and they build another section. But I'm not sure. But it's kind of a neat little area ledge for people to sit on. See, if you look back this way, it's all wooded tree line. I think this shot is the coolest because it just the whole edge of it is just all skyline. It's one of those things where you really don't think about, and you really don't see it that often, where all of this nature. And then you've got that really definitive edge of just huge civilization and like modern buildings and concrete skyscrapers and glass and steel. And then you've got all this beautiful nature. Central Park is one of the most unique parks in the United States because of that. It's not tropical, but it's almost like a tropical oasis in the middle of New York City. And it actually does a lot of ecological things for the city too. As we know, trees are like giant filters, and they take in all of the pollutants and particulates in the air, and then they release good oxygen for us to breathe. And so experts have said if Central Park were to be torn down, as I said, it's one of the oldest parks. It's been around since. I wish I knew when it was built. It was built right almost about the same time as the I think it was the early 1800s, if I remember right. And so it's you know, it's been around for a long time. And experts have said if it goes, if at some point in time it would go away, because it's prime real estate, right? If you know anything about New York City, that the all the way around Central Park is incredibly expensive real estate. And so if some developer decided to come in and sell or buy part of Central Park, and then they just kind of keep buying and buying, and they get away with Central Park, that would actually decrease the breathing um, quality, the air quality of New York City. Air quality in New York City is not the greatest as it is, but if you got rid of Central Park, it would decrease the air quality even more. That's never going to happen because Central Park is a national park, and it is it's protected, and you can't. It's owned by the National Park System, which is the United States government, and they're not going to sell any of that land. They're not going to build on that land. So it's very protected. But if that were to happen sometime, it would really, that kind of shows you how much Central Park means to New York City, and how much from an environmental standpoint it means to New York City. And as a park ranger, that's your job. You're protecting. A lot of people think that no, they're protecting the people that are in the park. They're protecting. They're you know, if somebody's vandalizing the park, then they're there to arrest them or something like that. It is part of their job, but their job is to protect the natural resources. Their job is to protect the environment. Their job is to protect that little piece of land that they're in charge of. And that's a pretty cool job. I honestly, I've thought about being a park ranger before. I think it'd be a lot of fun. I like nature. I like being outside. I love history. And I think it'd be a lot of fun. Maybe in my second life, I might become a park ranger. But I would highly recommend the job. I think it would be a lot of fun, and we're gonna leave today with this gorgeous view of the reservoir overlooking the city, and I would highly recommend looking into